Hello, Naomi. Thank you for joining us on the Power Woman Wellness Podcast. How are you today?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. It's just such an honor to be here.
I'm very excited to have you on and just to learn more about you and where you're going and the direction that you're taking in your life, as well as, what are you doing to keep yourself healthy throughout transitions? And I know you have a little one, so we'd love to hear you balance it all. So we'll start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what do you do, the basics.
Okay, great. Well, my name is Naomi Seifter, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but most notably, I guess, I founded a restaurant in Austin called Picnic. And I started that restaurant concept when I was 24. And now I guess I'm a restaurateur turned content creator. And I am posting daily recipe videos online on my Instagram, TikTok, sort of new territory for me,
Oof.
and sharing about the joys of practical home cooking. Because even though it's so important to go out to eat for socialization and fun and new experiences, I also feel like the practical tool of knowing how to cook at home is incredibly valuable. So that's
Oh,
something I'm
yeah.
really focused on today.
Oh yeah, and Picnic is by far one of my favorite restaurants in Austin. I know I've told you that
Oh,
before, and it
thanks.
and it is. But even like not Picnic, but even the healthier places, it's still questionable about like oils they use. So I
Yeah,
mean, you even if you're trying your best, there's nothing like eating at home, and I can
so
even
true.
see such a difference in like my body. Even just feeling and looking less inflamed. And again, even though I'm trying to be like choose the better choices, there's just
Yeah,
some things you can't control in a restaurant, and it
yes.
does affect you.
That's so true. And honestly, the whole reason I started Picnic, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept, everything is about real food and good vibes. And the foundational principles are really that it's refined sugar free, gluten free, peanut free, and also seed oil free. And it started back in 2013 as a reclaimed shipping container and has since grown into 3 locations in Austin. We're opening a new location in Houston, and it has a full service menu, brunch, lunch, dinner, just really nutrient dense foods. And to your point, the whole reason I started that concept was because I feel like, this is my personal opinion, this opinion is my own, but I feel like the restaurant industry in general does not have our well-being in mind or our
Wow,
health in
I
mind.
agree.
It's very focused on how do we plate up something for the guests that's delicious, but not always thinking about the nutrition behind it. And after working in the restaurant industry for 15 years, I have seen the types of oils that people use, the shortcuts that are taken, and I didn't want any of that to be a part of this concept.
And you feel it. I mean, like I
Yeah.
can go eat at Picnic and feel amazing and like a home cooked meal almost. So
Oh,
I
that's so good to hear.
I
And that's the
appreciate that you
objective.
created it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's the objective, right? And the same is the case for me after struggling with food sensitivities, really my whole adolescence and early adulthood. I found such a major difference when I eat clean food and when I focus
Yeah.
on the basics of real food ingredients like meats, fish, fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, clean oils. And so that's the foundation of the menu there. And it's also the foundation of what I show on my page online.
Yeah. And going back to being a content creator. So
Yeah.
you said daily. Do you film daily or do you batch?
Great question. When I'm ahead, I batch. When I'm not ahead, I film daily. So
Okay.
right now, it's funny, like, not to get into the nuances of like the Instagram algorithm and whatever, you'll see people talk
Yeah.
about that, but really it favors daily content and
Yeah.
sometimes twice daily for it to show your content to people. And so if you're doing something like recipe creation, that's a lot of recipes and that's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff to cook and a lot of dishes to make. So when I have the time available and I can really schedule it out, I'll try and batch. But a lot of times I'm just cooking what
Wow.
I'm making for breakfast for my family or what I'm making for dinner for my family
I
in
love
like
that.
real time, honestly.
I love that. And how do you feel like you shifted from like, where you were in healthy eating habits and what you were eating from when you started Picnic to where you are now? Has anything changed? Has anything
Yeah.
been added?
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate you asking that question. Um, back in my early 20s, I really focused really heavily on sort of a paleo inspired diet, grain-free, no legumes, really minimal nuts and seeds. And a lot of that was because my personal journey, I struggled with lots of reactions to food, especially histamine reactions and things like that. Now, after a decade of exploring different healing diets, I mean, I had a stint on the GAPS diet, and I followed the medical medium protocol for a while, and I lived on a paleo diet for a long time. I actually find I'm more tolerant of a lot of foods at this point in my life. And part of that is from those healing diets. And part of it is, and now in my mid 30s, I've also feel like I've learned about the differences in certain ingredients. So I was gluten-free for a decade, but now if you follow my page, you'll see I use things like einkorn, or I bake a lot of sourdough bread. And because in my opinion, I don't think that sourdough bread does the same thing to your body. Again, this is my personal opinion, and I'm not sharing any science behind it, but I don't think sourdough bread for my body does the same thing as like white stripped bread flour that hasn't been fermented. Like I digest it totally differently. I feel it differently in my body. So I cook with some heritage, non-hybridized wheats, and I bake with a lot of those ingredients, and I find I tolerate it. I find my family tolerates it. And that's nothing I ever explored in the past, but it's a part of my now.
That's awesome. I mean, I would like to think that too. I love einkorn just because it hasn't been changed at all. It's still very ancestral strain of wheat. And that's the downfall, I think, is why people just naturally are gluten-free, is because that is just so hard to find. Like pre-made, like you have to like slow down and bake and like make time for that in your life if you want to have that. And if you don't, like, you're just stuck with very processed options. And it is. So if you love bread, you just gotta slow down and cook.
You do. It's true. And I mean, so I'm the type of person that I generally will not eat anything that's wheat derived at a restaurant, because most of the time it's a very hybridized version of wheat that has been modified to be higher in protein, have less nutrition, all those things. So it's like glue when it goes through your body. I mean, you can literally do like side-by-side comparisons by making little dough balls at home and rinsing away sort of I don't know if you consider it like starch or whatever, but you can actually sort of compare the quote unquote gluten content between these different dough balls to see the difference. And that's the thing. It's like, you cannot compare something like einkorn or even probably spelt or rye to a refined version of bread flours. So, a lot of times when I talk about things like wheat or hybridization, like I'm not a scientist, I'm really a foodie, but I can tell you from my personal experience, they don't feel like they're the same ingredient at all. And it's sort of like that quote. I always used to say this quote with my mom. It's like, don't blame the butter for what the bread did. That was a quote you heard like a lot. And there were a lot of memes like that. It's almost like, don't blame the gluten. It's almost like, don't blame the gluten for what we did to the wheat, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why people can go to Europe even, and they naturally use, I think, those types of strains, and they can feel fine. But when they come to America and have it, it's like awful.
Makes you sick. Yeah, exactly. So I have a big passion at this point in my life, I think, for getting back to the basics with food and being really exploratory with the way things were done in the past. So you'll see me explore things like sourdough, or you make cultured foods like sauerkraut and things like that at home.
Nice. And I know you have a little one, so I know your morning routine is probably, just a little bit different having littles. I remember that. So share with us, what are you doing for breakfast? What are you making for breakfast? What are you drinking? Anything, like any habits that you do in the morning?
Yes. So I am now a mom of 2, which has definitely thrown a loop into my life. In the best possible way. I love being a mom so much. But truthfully, I have been like a co-sleeper with both of my kids, basically back to back, and have been also nursing for like 3.5 years straight without a break. So that is a lot
Yes.
on me as the mom. So I at this stage of my life and where I am in motherhood, I am really excited about like eating big, nourishing, nutrient dense meals. Maybe if I wasn't nursing or doing that, like I would scale it back a little bit on the butter or cream or like a lot of things
Never.
like that. But my morning routine is I wake up and we get our kids just like set up in an activity for the day so
Oh,
we can do some chores. Both my husband and I sort of have a checklist of things we do to start the day. So very first thing I'll do is I'll go and fold a load of laundry that I had dried the night before, put that away, and then I'll pour myself a glass of tea. I'm a huge fan of Earl Grey, and that's how I start my day
oh,
every day. And I actually prefer that a lot of times over coffee because it gives me sort of the caffeine lift that I
yeah,
want, but without any jitters. And same would be the case
yeah.
for butter coffee or something like that. And I add a little bit of cream and some honey, and that is like a way I start my day, a big glass of water. And then in terms of breakfast, a lot of times we'll have some stuff in the freezer that I've already prepped or made. So whether I'm making some scrambled eggs and a piece of sourdough, or I pull some like einkorn blueberry muffins out of the freezer for my kids. Those are things I like have around. Like I'll make a big batch of sourdough waffles and keep them in the freezer, or we'll have some hard boiled eggs in the fridge. So I'll generally, breakfast is like grab and go,
Yeah.
whatever we have
Love
around.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love that I co-slept too. I think at one point when
You
we
get
had
it.
my daughter, I didn't want to push my son out right away.
Yeah.
So I actually pushed my husband out. And so we slept. And then I would say 2 weeks down the road, I was like, okay, like Isaiah, like, obviously you have a baby sister and dad has to come back in bed. So we're going to move you
Yeah.
out. So I just remember those days and like the nursing and just rolling over and putting a boob and there you
That's
go.
it.
Like,
It's so much easier. It's so much easier.
yes.
And I'm sure I get so much judgment for that, honestly, from people just because it's not the standard, right? The standard is put them down, swaddle them, stick them in a crib, walk away. For me, it didn't work out that way. We actually live in a tiny home. It's only 800 square feet. We traded a bigger house for a smaller house on a piece of land. So we have this little
Oh,
tiny home. And so we have to get creative anyway about our sleeping arrangements. And so
yeah.
it just has worked well for our
Yeah.
family. And like, especially with the amount of time we all get to spend together.
Yeah.
It's just been a beautiful gift. I know it's a time I'll
Yeah.
remember for my whole
Yeah.
life.
Oh, I agree. Man, I don't know. I loved it. I think of this as how we call like alternative medicine. I mean, that's actually the OG medicine. We
Yeah.
had that before. And so I feel like the same with like co-sleeping and breastfeeding like that. Like, I don't believe that we made separate rooms for our babies. And of course, it's everyone's different decision, but
Totally.
that is just so natural. And I hate that that's become alternative. Like that's the
Yeah.
alternative way to do it. When I'm like, this is probably the OG way to do it because
Totally.
safety wise, why would you put your infant in another room? Like it just kind of makes sense. So I
Yeah.
hate that
And
like
there's a
we
lot of
get
fear now
hit for it.
too. Like
Yeah.
people, I think a lot of it too, and the trepidation from people about exploring something like co-sleeping is there is like a lot of fear just around
Yeah.
infant sleep. And again, that was just my personal experience, and people
Yeah.
have all sorts of reasons why they would, it's safe sleep habits,
Yeah.
really, but for me as a nursing mom, I just could not survive. My kids
Me either.
were up all night long wanting to nurse, and like, again, self-inflicted. I could have set those boundaries probably a little bit better, but neither of my kids took bottles, neither. So it ended up being personal choice that I was
Yeah.
nursing. And I just made the most sense for our life and our reality to co-sleep
Yeah.
and nurse through the night. And it
For
was easier
sure.
on me. So
I wouldn't be able to have routines if I was not like co-sleeping.
yeah. Yeah. It helped me
It-
with my sanity during the day.
yes.
And again, not for
Yes.
everybody. And and
For sure.
could be outraged from people for me saying that, but that's what
Oh,
works
bring
for
it
our family.
on. Because I agree. Everyone finds their own groove, but it sucks that this side of it is always demonized
Yeah.
when the other side isn't demonized. Because I understand, I respect that. That's your decision.
Yeah.
But I just hate that this side is demonized. But I'm like,
Yeah.
it works too. Just because you don't know it or you're afraid of it, that's fine, understandable. But don't demonize us for our choices.
Yeah, it really is just like the journey of life is everybody's journey is unique, and everybody has reasons why they make transitions, and it's totally okay for people to explore what works for them. And that's the case with life, parenting, food, whatever it is, exercise, you know what I mean? Everybody's path is unique. And just because there are sort of quote unquote the ways or the way to do something doesn't mean that there's other ways. It's like that quote of there are infinite ways to skin a cat,
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
a horrible phrase, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean by that.
That's so funny. I mean, my husband were just talking about that with just our routines, like business, like what we're doing and how we're networking and all of that. And I found my husband kind of putting it in a box of like, well, you have to be around like-minded people. And, that's how you, build that. And that's how you become like successful is like the connections. And I get that 100%. There's value in that. But I'm like, as an introvert, I'm like, I don't know. There's also ways to not have to travel every quarter to like be successful. And so I'm all about like trying to break standards, but I'm naturally a little bit of a rebel. So there's that.
No, it's true. And I'm an introvert too. And I will say like, that's part of the thing I think is really amazing about the online world too. Like whether you're extrovert or introvert it is provided a way for people to connect with other people from all over the world. With like staying in their living room. Now, is that ideal? I don't know. There's definitely like downfalls of social media. And it's one of those things, like part of the reason I was so hesitant to get online was for so many years was because like, it's the thing that you love and hate. It's like, it adds great value, but there's also so much that could be improved about it. But one of the things that's really amazing is the fact that all of a sudden your reach goes from something like meeting people in person once a quarter to you can connect with an audience from all over the world. So that's pretty amazing.
For sure. And I know, speaking like with routines and balancing, how do you balance as a content creator? How do you balance mental health and sanity with creating content, being a job, being on social media? How do you feel like you do that?
Honestly, you just have to, my husband and I were just talking about this earlier today. It's almost like you just have to shut it off. It's like you take the time that you need to do to connect with the people who are invested in your account, in your content, and you put up the content that you want to put up for the day, and then really like spend a few minutes interacting as best you can, and then shut it off. And that's and come back to it later in the evening. It's almost like having set times during the day where you check in. Otherwise it really has a tendency to kind of dominate your life because there's no disconnection. It's like you're getting alerts constantly on your phone. Like a lot of things require sort of not immediate response, but especially if you have it, let's say you put up something like you put up a video that people have a strong reaction against. It's like, if you want to, sort of come to the defense of the video, or you want to share your point of view. It's like being sort of involved in responding to comments and content like regularly is important. But for my mental health, I just feel like if I put something up in the morning, stay present for a few minutes to just make sure that it's live, everything's good, people are seeing it, and then shut my phone and step away and focus on the other things I need to do for the day. That's really the only way I feel like stay balanced with it.
Yeah, I love that. And then what are your nighttime routines, if you have anything you implement in the evening?
Yeah, so I guess I'll just kind of high level share about the rest of the day because I talked about the morning. So as I am a content creator now, the time where I'm not on social, a lot of times I'm also cooking or preparing things for the family. So if I'm making lunch or I'm making dinner, a lot of times I'm just actively filming that. And that doesn't take much additional time. It's just sort of setting up my camera, filming longer form videos of what I'm doing, and then having dinner with the family. And after my family goes to bed is when I'll do a lot of my editing, actually. So
Nice.
once my kids go to bed, I don't co-sleep the whole night, right? I put my son down, put my daughter down, and then come out, and on my phone, or if I'm lucky enough to have my laptop or my computer around me, I'll do my video editing at that point. So I have stuff ready for the next day. So really it's sort of this like balance between also maintaining the responsibilities I have at Picnic as a founder and a board member, and then fitting in all my content creation needs and my family needs around that. So it all sort of just melds together. I'm blessed enough to have the opportunity to sort of be in a remote setting at this point in my life. And so really just the work obligations, the restaurant obligations, the family obligations all sort of meld together.
Nice. Do you do anything after work for like self-care, journaling, meditation? Do you do anything?
Yes. Actually my favorite tools for self-care and mental health and all those things actually came from a time again, I said I've done a lot of different things in my life, but one thing I did was I lived in a yoga ashram for a couple of years. I know this is sort of strange. After I got my degree in musical theater, which has nothing to do really with what I do now, besides like being comfortable being in front of people, I guess. But I knew that I didn't want to be a performer professionally by the end of school. And so I sort of went on this personal self-development like retreat. And I ended up traveling to India, living in an ashram in Quebec in upstate New York. It was called the Shivananda Yoga Vedanta Center. It's still there. It's an amazing place.
I'm impressed that you just said that. Like, without hesitation.
It's an amazing place, and I worked there then for a long time. But the foundational principles that they teach there are based in yoga, and it's proper diet, proper breathing, proper meditation, proper exercise, and positive thinking and meditation. I believe are the 5 points. It's been a while since I've said those. But every day we did sort of the same routine of you wake up, you go to a meditation hall, and you do meditation with a group, and then you do some yoga asanas and also what is called pranayama, which is breathing exercises. So if I am lucky enough to find the time in my day, which I try to make a priority often, I will spend time sitting in meditation and also doing these breathing exercises called pranayama, because it's the one thing that makes me feel very aligned, helps my nervous system feel balanced, and just gives me lots of really good creative ideas.
So because I know you said you were in a tiny house, and you have 2 kids. Where do you go?
My favorite place to go is outside in our hammock. If I do it and the weather is okay, honestly, because it's outside, it's quiet, it's beautiful. We also have a couple shipping containers on the property that are mostly storage, but one of them is sort of converted into, it has an AC unit, so I can sit in there. So we just have to get creative with space, but those are really my favorite sort of mental health tools. In addition to that, I will say having any kind of creative outlet is a really great mental health tool. And I love like exploring new things. So like sourdough, even though I film it, is really a creative, fun outlet for me, but also something like learning how to do crochet or macrame or embroidery. Like at any time after work, if I'm looking for a way to unwind, that's not editing or that's not work related, I will pick up some sort of new activity and just try and learn it.
Oh, okay. I know I'm in my doctorate now, so I'm fully,
that's so wild,
a lot, no time, but I was like, I want to like go back when I'm done with school and stuff and things get back to normal where I'm just focused on work. I was like, I think I might like try to learn a different language. Something that challenges your
mind and is fun, and that has been a big blessing about like this channel that I'm working on, is I get to film things that are fun to me. So like sourdough is really fun to me. It's very artistic. It's very creative. It's also one of the most interesting things from like a culinary perspective I've ever explored. So I love that. But really, I find for me, I'm a creative person. So creative outlets that like aren't work related are ways I like to spend my free time.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into my sourdough era, but I have a feeling
Yeah.
it's coming. I have a
Yeah.
feeling it's
Yeah.
coming.
And it's not for everybody. Honestly, I started it a couple years ago and then I abandoned it. I wasn't really into it. And it wasn't until this is sort of a weird thing. If you have a sourdough starter, it's alive. It really is like a house plant. It requires tending to
Really?
it regularly. Yeah. And if you keep it on the counter, it requires tending to it every day. Most of the time,
Oh.
if you see people have a sourdough starter, they will feed it and stick it in the fridge and sort of forget about it. My love for sourdough, I feel like didn't really start until I kept my starter on the counter and I had to tend to it every single day.
Oh.
Because when I tended to it every day, I wanted to do stuff with it, and
Oh.
I realized part of the process with a sourdough starter is there's something called discard. You have to throw some away to feed it every single day. So
Oh.
yeah. So it's like, it requires care. So if you're not using it, then you're just unnecessarily throwing starter away, which is like a really valuable thing. So the more it was on my counter, the more I used it, the more I fell in love with it. So I was an
Oh my
advocate. If you
gosh.
want to get into sourdough, keep it on the
Ye-
counter like it's a plant, and because
Oh
then
my
you'll actually
gosh.
use it.
Well, you need to like do a reel on this. And obviously this one will take a
Really?
little bit, but I
Yeah.
would love to just kind of see the process of the daily
Yeah.
upkeep of like the sourdough. And then obviously when it comes to baking, like I would you add that to your list.
Really? That's so
Yes.
nice. I mean, I've been a little bit like, I don't know, hesitant about the sourdough journey just because I'm like, are people going to be interested in me sharing more about this? And I know, because like I said,
Yeah.
Picnic is fully gluten-free. And so I know that was probably confusing for some people when I started sharing about some stuff with
Yeah.
sourdough or these kind of heritage flours. But to me, like I said, I find them to be really
Yeah.
digestible and they sort of fit into that world. And I know a lot of people who are gluten-free explore sourdough when they can get it from a proper
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
So
For
yeah,
sure.
taking power back and sort of exploring it at home is really fun. But to your point, one thing I have to acknowledge in sort of like this new venture that I'm doing and talking about cooking all the time is like, I understand time is an absolute premium for everybody. And like
Yeah.
the one thing people do not have right now is time. Like
Yeah.
we are so inundated with needing to work and things are so expensive and inflation and
Yeah.
all the things that it makes it really hard to prioritize the time to do it. But I will just say in my own life, I've just felt it to be very beneficial to my own health and the health of
Yeah.
my family.
Yeah. Well, I'm the excuse remover. No one can ever use that. I'm too busy. I'm sorry. I just don't accept that because I
Yeah.
am the busiest person ever.
Yeah.
And I still make time to eat. And it's in my phone, like a doctor's appointment. We take it
Yeah.
seriously. Like I need to start cooking dinner. Sorry,
Yeah.
no one can schedule. Like it's just, I think it just comes down to priorities and whether you do it now or you're going to be forced to do it in the future when you're ill, like then, I
Yeah.
mean, so be it. But like what we do, we want to like prevent people from getting to that point.
Yeah.
And just like you, find a love for it and just slow down because I think that's how our society, or we're so fast paced, we're so Amazon Prime, we're doing it now,
Yes.
just go, 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 that we forget to just slow down, and eating and cooking is a part of that. And it's a great time in the middle of the day for lunch to slow down and eat,
Yes.
but everyone's just like on the go. And I know some days I have that, like today will probably be the day because right after I pick up my daughter, I gotta take her to dance. Right after she
Yeah.
gets home, I gotta take my son to basketball. So I probably will be eating in the car,
Yeah.
but that's like not, the whole week. So
Something that is really something you hit on a really good point that my husband and I talk about a lot, because this is something he does really well and has been very influential to me, which is like food doesn't have to be complicated, right? Yeah. And when you sit and you watch content like online or you look at blogs, everything is recipes with like ingredient lists, like 40 ingredients long that nobody has around ever, and if the biggest piece of advice I could give to somebody who wants to start cooking more at home, it's like, stop complicating it.
Yeah.
Oil, salt. That's it. Like you can put it on meat. You can put it on vegetables. You can roast it. You can saute it. You can put it on the grill. All you need is a little bit of olive oil and salt.
Yeah.
Start there.
Yeah.
If that's the thing that is inhibiting you from starting to cook, it's like, just make it as simple as possible. Pare down. If you have to buy veggies that are already prepped, or you have to buy cuts of meat that you can literally just take out, like chicken thighs. I talk about chicken thighs all the time, but it's as easy as like, take them out, put them in a pan, drizzle them with oil, stick them in the oven, and then you've got a week's worth of meat. It's just a really
Yeah.
convenient thing. And so the more we consume these like really fancy recipes, the more we think that's how we have to be cooking. And so
Yeah.
I want people to take kind of the power back and understanding that it's like as easy as opening a can of tuna and putting some, right, like
Yeah.
yogurt or
Oh,
mayo or whatever. You get used to that. And I will say, like, a lot of my passion for this and a lot of the reminders of like the ease of cooking at home came from when we moved out here, because there are no restaurants
yeah,
around
you're
me.
forced.
There is no DoorDash, there is no Uber Eats, there is no Amazon Prime. I mean, if you can believe that, I drive an hour to pick up packages from the
Oh
post
my God.
office. And it's an hour and a half round trip for me to go to HEB, not even like Whole Foods International Grocers, right? So I have to be very intentional about how do I
Wow.
organize shopping lists? What do we have to have around so that we're eating well, you know? So
Wow.
I think that's part of it, is like, if anybody wants to do a challenge where they cook more at home, it's like delete the delivery apps from your phone,
Yes.
because that's what forced me to cook more,
Tempting.
because
Yeah.
it's so easy. It is so easy. The convenience of like just opening up your phone and being
Yeah.
like, I want Thai food tonight. Come here now.
Yeah.
I'll be here in 30 minutes. Like, takes the responsibility away. But
Yeah.
what we talked about in the beginning is that the majority of restaurants don't have our best interests in mind in terms
Yeah.
of health promoting ingredients. So the more you can cook at home, the more you take back control.
Yeah, 100%. And where I would say, give us two of your go-to meals that
Yeah.
you rely on, and especially if they're simple.
Yeah. I
The
mean,
chicken thighs.
one is for breakfast, honestly, hard boiled eggs. It's so boring, but we have them around all the time. My husband eats a lot of
Nice.
meat. And two is baked chicken thighs. We have those like all the time. We, salt, pepper, or seasoning in the oven or on the grill. So easy. You can do a marinade. You can put them on salads. You can use them for dinner with potatoes or
Yeah.
rice or whatever. So those are really easy go-to for us. And I prefer chicken thighs over chicken breasts because I just think they're more tender and juicy, and they're easier for people to cook without overcooking.
Yeah. Yes. Oh gosh, chicken breasts. So that's such a science there
Oh,
to
I
make sure
know,
it's
they're
like
not
not
my
dry.
thing, honestly. They're like not my thing because they're always dry. I mean,
Yeah.
and like, in order to make them not dry, people will be like, oh, use a sous vide or whatever. I don't have time for it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
things are too crazy. I just want something I can put easily in the oven. So those
Yes.
are two go-through things. The other thing that's like a big go-to for me is, like, you'll see on my page, I have pinned on the top of my profile, I called it the best on everything dressing, but I always have a homemade salad dressing in my fridge because it
I was
allows
just
you
gonna
to,
bring that up.
yeah, yeah, it allows you to up level like anything. It's like, okay, if I have some quinoa or raw veggies or cooked veggies, I can just easily make a salad.
Yes, I was just about to bring that up because I saw that on your Instagram, and I was like, what sauces? Because I will say, they're like an extra step, but
Yeah.
everything is up leveled with like a tahini sauce or something
Yes.
simple like you created. Like, it will just take a meal from being really simple to like, oh my gosh, this is so incredible.
Yes, and it lasts for so long. Okay, I want to talk about that dressing for a second because I have like 80 million variations of it on my page. And the reason why is because stop complicating cooking. It is, right, like, that's my whole objective. Like, let's not complicate it. This recipe comes together, 5 ingredients in one jar, nothing perishable. You don't need to cut a garlic clove. You don't need to chop anything up. It's equal parts Dijon mustard, mayo, white wine vinegar, honey, and olive oil. Equal parts. So like, I do like 2 tablespoons or a quarter cup of each, put it in a jar and shake it. That's all.
Easy.
It's I would call it white wine vinaigrette. It's like an amazing dressing and requires nothing else. And the thing is, it lasts forever because there's nothing ultra perishable in there besides mayo. So however long is the shelf life of your mayo, the dressing should last. And if you
Nice.
don't like mayo, which a lot of people have opinions on, Greek yogurt's a great substitution for that.
A lot of people have opinions on.
They do. Not
That's
everybody
hilarious.
loves mayo, to be honest. But you
Love
can do that
mayo.
same dressing with balsamic vinegar instead of white wine vinegar, or maple syrup
Yeah.
instead of honey. Like, you can just change it up, and it's like an amazing thing to have around.
Oh, I'm gonna do that. Well, we're
You'll
moving this
love it.
weekend,
You'll
but
love it.
we'll do it when we settle in. I would love
Yeah.
to try it.
Yeah.
And so I know you with exercise, I'm guessing, I know you mentioned yoga. That's kind of been something that's
Yeah.
been in your life for a while. Do you do any other exercise besides running around chasing your kids?
Yeah. Really, it's really, I'm a little embarrassed to share that. It's like not the biggest part of my life right now in this season of life, but it has been in the past. But historically, when I taught yoga, it was an everyday practice. Now it's something that I do when I find the time to do it, but I don't have a regular schedule, to be honest. But we live on land that has really amazing topography that has like 3 different levels. And so we have lots of roads and like, not like real roads, just like paths that are dynamic. And so we'll walk down to kind of the river, or we'll walk around. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is like, we just walk, scramble around on rocks. So anything I can do outside, gardening, that's physical, is the season of life I'm in right now.
I know. And that's okay. I think some people think you have to always go hard, and no, it's not the case. So I'm glad that you bring that up. And we'll finish off too. Do you have any favorite self-development books or podcasts or even social media accounts that you just love to follow that are really inspirational to you?
Yes. The most inspirational book I probably ever read was when I worked at Lululemon when I was like 20, and it's called The Psychology of Achievement, and it's written by a man named Brian Tracy, and you can listen to the audiobook too, but it's all about goal setting. And I think anytime I've interacted with somebody in my journey with Picnic or just in life who's struggling to kind of find direction, I would say read that book or listen to that book, because it gives you a structure of how to start to think about your goals for the next stage of your life. And it's as tangible as like, in the next 30 seconds, what are the 3 most important goals to you right now? How do you elaborate on those things? It's been a long time since I've listened to it, but I have referred so many people to that book with amazing experiences that I just, it's one of my favorites.
Awesome. And podcasts, do you listen to podcasts or not?
I do. I listen to a lot of like homesteading podcasts. That's kind of my thing right now, my personal hobby outside of what I'm doing with work. Because we live on land, it's been a dream of my husband and I for a very long time. Sort of stepping into growing a really lush garden, growing more of our food. We just got a chicken coop sort of set up. So we're planning to have chickens in the next couple of months, like fingers crossed. I have a dog that's like, she's a total chicken murderer. So we'll see if it works. But, maybe even having like some dairy sheep someday, like all those things would sort of be dreams of mine. So I listen to a lot of homesteading podcasts, and that's really inspiring to me, because I think
do you have a favorite?
I listen to the Homesteading Family a lot. They have like something called Pantry Chat. But they just talk about like lots of skills, and they just launched a school called the School of Traditional Skills. And like, I just really like that kind of stuff, because it gets you back to basics, things like canning, sourdough, cooking, livestock, homesteading, gardening techniques, all those things I'm passionate about.
Yeah. Again, getting back to slowing down and doing what I think we're called to do that as humans. And while I'm very grateful for quickness and in a pinch Amazon Prime and Whole Foods delivery, like it's nice though to sometimes walk around a grocery store and just walk and pick food and just I know some people hate it, but like the grocery store is like my theme park. So I get super excited, and it's like, okay, what's new? I haven't seen this before, and I just love it. So when I have time, it's like so fun. I know, we're adulting.
Or the market, like that's another thing too, is like, or the, whether it's the grocery store, we don't really have any farmers markets out here, but I did go to like a new dairy the other day in Belton, which was awesome, to visit the farm and get milk and cream and like, meet people who have eggs. And I have a really beautiful relationship. We have a beautiful relationship with this man named Lee who runs Southwest Farms. It's really cool when you have a chance to like shop at the grocery store and look at these sort of what's seasonal, what's in, or like meet the farmers and see how things are raised or grown. It's really eye-opening, I feel like.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm so glad we got to sit down and chat. We're going to end with a lightning round of questions. So it's like either or, choose one or the other.
Okay.
Okay. So book or podcast?
Podcast.
Yeah. Texting or calling?
Texting always. No one try and call me. I like never answer.
Me too. I'm like, I will like deny your call. I could be totally free, but I will deny
I know.
So I should add one in here, like a audio text. That's my thing. Like I'll audio text 100%, but will not call.
Same.
Horror movies or comedy?
Comedy. I like actually cannot watch horror movies. They're like off my list.
Me either. I feel like
Give me anxiety.
yes, yes. Even though right now I am watching The Walking Dead. I don't know why. I obviously like been around forever, but I'm like, I'm just gonna watch it. Yeah, I
That's so
definitely
funny.
anxiety after it.
Totally.
Romper or dress?
Dress always. I have like a house dress I wear 99% of the time. I have it in like a billion different colors.
Yeah, nothing. Rompers are cute, but nothing's worse than being naked, like in a
Yeah,
public bathroom.
that's it. That's it. That's it.
And then last one, guac or salsa?
Both combo.
Oh,
I can't do one without the other, honestly, most of the
yeah,
time.
yeah. I feel like it's kind of natural to even be integrated into one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, okay, where can we find you? Where can we get all inspired by your cooking skills?
Oh, you're so sweet. My most active account right now is Instagram. And so my handle is at Naomi Seifter. My last name, S as in Sam, E-I, F as in Frank, T as in Tom, E-R. I know that's kind of complicated, but at Naomi Seifter. You could also in the search bar, search practical home cooking and I'll probably show up because that's the top of my bio. But yeah, that's my handle. And that's actually at Practical Home Cooking is my handle on TikTok, but it's mostly right now the same content. And please, yeah, follow along. I share all the time cooking videos every day, twice a day sometimes. So that's pretty much what you'll see. Home cooking tips. You won't see much else. I should talk in my stories and do other things, but
yes. Well, thank you for spending time with us today.
yes, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.